The New Hampshire SPCA was founded in 1872, so it's really exciting that this year we're celebrating our 140th anniversary. It's also really exciting that we're one of the 10 oldest humane societies in the United States. The New Hampshire SPCA was founded originally by Sarah J. Pickering, and we have some of the original documents behind us signed by Sarah J. Pickering. And we were founded to care for beasts of burden, and those were those large animals, the horses that were being driven from, say, Portsmouth to Newmarket or Newington, left out all day without water, no shelter, no food, or just neglected. So we've been around for a long time.
It was founded in 1872. Back then it was the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals and Children. Back then children were worked like farm animals. So in the 70s, the state took over the child services portion.
Since we were founded, we have continued to care for animals. Probably about 75,000 animals have gone through our doors. But what's also interesting is that we were unsheltered for the first 100 years or so. We were doing investigations, but we weren't caring for animals in the way that we think of today. The animal pound had not been founded yet. Our first shelter was on the Stratham Traffic Circle, and then our old shelter here, and then our new shelter, which opened in 2001.
When I started here, this building wasn't even here, and we had an old, damp, dank, dark place where the animals were housed. And it was right over there where that beautiful building is now. I saw that building and how crappy it was. I knew that in the process was a plan to build this building. I said, geez, the animal's gonna have a new house. They're gonna need some help maintaining, not the property, but the upkeep and the care of the animals. And that's what I wanna do.
We actually moved to this location, not this facility, in the mid-70s. We then had a capital campaign in basically the 90s. The adoption center was begun and opened in 2001. The barn opened in 2003, and this building, the Learning Center, in 2004.
Well, we have humane education classes and programs for kids from preschool right up through high school.
We have a wonderful humane education program. Our humane education program works with preschoolers through our story time, right through college students and internships, Eagle Scouts, and everything in between. Vacation camps, summer camps, after-school programs.
My goal was to have a program or something to offer to every age of children. So our preschools and even babies come to our story time with animals. And I know when I was a teacher, I had kids that didn't have a whole lot of interest in reading, but anytime we read about animals, it didn't matter if they were a boy or a girl or their age level or their reading level, they were all really interested in animal books.
Bear stands with a stretch and a great big sigh. I hope I can make it. I do want to try. Don't worry, squeaks Mouse. Hare says it's all right. We'll keep you busy all day and night.
They all talk.
They all talk. This must be They hang up their stockings by warm firelight and hum Christmas songs like Oh Holy Night. On he lets out a yawn.
Story time kind of goes from little babies up to about age 5.
Badger shows Bear a quilt just his size. Do you see that? I got it.
How are you? That's awesome. Is it a
Yeah. That's like an expressive face. Yeah. She just got a huge snot.
And then we start from 6 to 8 with the We Care Club. And that's an opportunity for kids who love animals and are interested in animals to be in a place where there are a lot of different animals that they can interact with and learn about.
Oh, look at that bag that he's in. Here you go. Here. So you tell your mom that you see. Ready? No, won't you? So, yeah, we're trying to pet him.
So these are the kids that are saying, you know, I want a hamster to their parents. So we're showing them how to hold a hamster. So they're learning a little bit about animals. And plus the way that most kids learn is hands-on. They need to not just see things, but also touch them and hold them, hear us talk about them, and then also for them to talk back to us about their experiences. We try to have a big variety of animals that people might have for pets. So, for example, we have birds, we have rats, we have mice. We have hermit crabs, lots of kids have hermit crabs. We have guinea pigs, a rabbit, ferret, so a lot of small animals that typically people might have. So we want to show them really the best way to take care of their animals. A good example is a rabbit. A lot of people have rabbits for pets. And they come in and they say, why is the rabbit hopping around the room? And then you find out that their rabbit that they've had for 5 years has never left the cage. And so, again, we explain to them that the ideal situation for a rabbit is that they get to come out of their cage a little bit of time every day, and that they need to stretch their legs and run and jump and do all that kind of stuff. And then when they say, well, you know, they're gonna go to the bathroom all over the house, we show them that they can be litter box trained. And when they say, well, they're gonna chew everything up, we, you know, tell them how you can get around that, you know, protecting your wires and your furniture and things.
Have a club called the Starfish Club, which is about the parable about throwing the starfish back into the ocean and making a difference to that each starfish that you throw back. We do the same thing. It makes a difference to each animal that you can provide a new home for, that you can save from an unfortunate life that it may have in a backyard tied out 24/7, whatever that may be. So we're always trying to teach about responsible pet ownership, identification, appropriate vet care, appropriate food, and socialization, interacting. You know, no animal should just be ignored all the time. They have social needs as well.
So the animals that are in here are not up for adoption. Most people would love to adopt some of our animals in here. We choose them because they are friendly.
You want to try and give her a kiss,
And healthy, but again, we work hard to make them that way. You know, we tell them the reason our hamster is so friendly is because she gets handled gently every single day. And if you have a hamster at home and you never take it out of the cage except on Saturday, And when you do, you reach in and grab it out of a sound sleep, that little animal's probably gonna bite you. So we tell people that it's hard work, just like with any animal, with a dog or with a cat, it's hard work to make them well-trained and friendly.
In the past year, we've reached about 7,500 children through the variety of programming that we have. And again, it runs from preschoolers and right up through children who are often old enough to then transition and become regular volunteers, unless they're working through internships and other kinds of learning opportunities. Sometimes it's just trying to help a child gain comfort with animals and to eliminate the fear that they may have. Sometimes it's educating about responsible pet ownership. Sometimes it's about advocacy. There's lots of ways that kids love to get involved and help animals.
Well, what humane education is teaching that all living things deserve respect and compassion. By teaching people that those living things need our attention and our concern and our care, we just think it makes the world a better place, and that the more we take care of all the living things in our lives, then the better off everyone will be. And of course, it also includes being kind and caring to each other, and that's something that we always need these days.
Why are the animals here in the first place? Because they're domesticated. And we in America are fortunate enough to have animals that we can take care of, hopefully take care of, and help us make it through life as our pets. And sometimes, as you can see, those pets get displaced.
Okay, I'll make my pile. There's all, yes, of course. You're helping, you've done. Oh, it looks really nice, you guys.
And how much money does it take to keep a cat?
Every year we take in about 3,000 animals, and the reasons that animals are surrendered are very varied. Sometimes it's a tragic, an owner has died, and no one is able to care for that pet, and so it's surrendered to us to be rehomed. Sometimes people are moving, they can't afford the pet anymore. Of course, that's certainly been an issue in the economy. Sometimes it's for lack of education when they make that decision to get an animal.
These kitties are here for various and sundry reasons. Let's take a look here. This kitty is, the dog was mean to me. There's a reason on the cage card here.
Okay.
The dog was mean to me, so the folks obviously had a desire to take care of the dog and not so much the cat, so they surrendered the cat instead. And here's the kitty up here, just resting away.
Some of them are sad. They're, you'd be surprised. We have them for all kinds of reasons. Owner passing away, divorce, owner moving, no time for me, any number of things. Can't afford me, can't afford the vet bills, all those things.
Yeah.
This one is no time for me. And they couldn't care for him properly. And also, the landlord didn't want him there anyway, so they gave him up. He just came in last Friday, and he's a bloodhound mix. Actually, he's a bloodhound Rottweiler mix. And he's had his temperament testing already. He wouldn't be out here if he hasn't had his temperament testing. They check to see how he is with cats and other commands. And all the information is on here. So we'll put a walk sign on.
Okay.
And we'll get him out. And he's a good boy. He was very shy at first. Actually, he was scared at first, but he's lightened up considerably.
Dogs, as you know, thrive on consistency, routine. So if all the volunteers come in, different people, different days, but they handle the dogs in the same way, it helps the dogs, reduce their stress, ultimately make them more adaptable and learn new things and hopefully have a good time. Temperament in dogs is hereditary. It can't be changed easily. Hounds hunt, retrievers retrieve, shepherds herd. But as volunteers, you have the opportunity to affect behavior and provide coping skills for the dogs. And also provide opportunities to learn new things. Basic commands, sit, no pull, no jump. Basic canine body language. Again, there's a lot in that manual that talks about calming signals. Dogs can't talk, but they can tell you a lot through their body language. And everyone thinks, the dog's tail is wagging and it's fine. Well, it kind of depends on how it's wagging. If it's stiff and vibrating, that dog is stimulated, it's seen something, about ready to, run off. If it's, kind of held low and even between its legs, it's nervous and shy and possibly frightened. And a frightened dog, has as much risk to bite as I don't like to say aggressive, but a defensive dog. A lot of dogs are defensive of their territory. We had a German Shepherd who, came to the, charged the front of the cage and looked like he was, going to kill you, but he was just defending his territory. The minute you opened the cage and showed him the leash, he was fine. Calming signals are lip licking, sweaty feet. We perspire, dogs perspire, but through their pads. So it's hard to see, sweaty footprints, but it is one of their calming signals. Yawning, stretching, they're not necessarily tired, but they're just trying to calm themselves. Panting, diverting their eyes, looking away. Shivering, it's not necessarily because they're cold, they're frightened. Ears, if they're flat against their head or held, back, they're nervous. They could be flicking. They're nervous and unsure. Dogs' ears that are forward, they're curious and alert. Diverting the eyes, lip licking, flicking her ears or ears back, tail up and stiff, hackles up. That dog's overstimulated, it's about to charge at something. So again, a happy dog, relaxed, ears forward, mouth open, tail even with the body.
Buddy?
Dogs do what works. They exhibit behavior to get a reaction. Examples, barking, jumping. And so our theory is rewarding good behavior results in better behaved dogs. Examples of rewards, of course, food, play, paying attention, toys.
We walk, you don't have to film this, but before we walk, we need supplies, and we need 4 things. We need a leash, of course.
Okay.
We need poop bags, because we're expected to pick the poop up.
Okay.
And we need, I like to put treats in my pocket.
Okay.
Right here. I get them right there.
Most of the dogs, again, when you see you coming with a leash, they're gonna come to the front of the cage, be all excited. But there are, some dogs that, like I said, will defend their territory. They're not, used to all the strangers, or they might be in the back of the kennel, not coming forward because they're shy or unsocialized. So, you just want to move slowly. We always recommend that you let the dog sniff your hand, through the kennel before you open the kennel. Let them sniff it again, and then, once they know you're okay, grab the collar, put the leash on, and take it out. If you do have to get into a kennel to get a dog, we recommend, backing in, getting down to its level, letting it sniff your hand without looking at it. And then once it sniffs you, knows you're okay, you can, pivot and grab the collar and put the leash on. So I always recommend, getting down to their level. That way they're on their 4 feet. To open the cage, you push up here or here. And if you block it, they can't, open the door and run out. So you can let them have the leash ready. And grab the collar. Sometimes you have to get into the kennel, it's easier. And then holding it close to you, walk out the back door.
All right, come on, Beans. The most important part of any training session is the safety issues. And we never choose a dog that we're uncomfortable with to walk. And that can come from one of 2 sources. It can either be too strong, he or she can either be too strong for you, or he or she may be a little bit on the aggressive side, where she cowers in the back of the cage, or shows her teeth, or something like that. If that's the case and you're uncomfortable with the dog, then you don't take that dog, because the last thing you want to do is lose a dog outside. I know Beans pretty well. She's a love, so I just chose her because she's real easy to walk. And when you get a dog out of the kennel like this, you get down at their level, and 9 out of 10 times they'll come to you because they want to come out. And you just hook her up. If the dog has a jacket or a specific easy walk harness, we have to use it. But Beans had neither, so.
Okay.
Okay, just the way she is. When we get in this area, there's 4 ways to get back over there. We can either go in front of the pens, down this path, behind the pen, or through the woods, either one. So we'll go through the woods today. I don't usually go through the woods in the summer or spring because it tends to get a little muddy.
Yeah.
But we will today.
So what is this?
These are pens. You can bring dogs in there. We don't bring pit bulls in there, but we can bring dogs in there that might require a little, burn off a little excess energy, that like to run and play fetch and things like that. We have to put a 30-foot lead on them when they're in here. We don't have to hold it, but the lead has to be on them. And you can throw a ball or a frisbee or something like that, and they enjoy that, and give them a little more exercise. You have to have 25 hours of dog walking or 6 months here, whichever occurs first, before you can take a dog in there. But that's what they're for. They're both the same. They're just 2 pens for that purpose. So It's a transfer, that's all it says. We don't know the reason that he was transferred. And he got here on November 5th. So we're talking 2 months and 6 days.
2 months. Okay.
You may have to pull forward a little, sometimes they stick. I always recommend backing out so the dog can't, escape. And then just, push down, make sure this is completely latched. And that's it.
Excuse me. Sure.
Look at Chris. Hunter, look at Chris. Go see Chris, huh? Shot. All right, let's go back in, Hunter. We've had enough now. This way. Come on.
The two main problems you'll deal with here are jumping and pulling. Most of the dogs come to us with some training, some, home life. But some of the younger dogs, older dogs too, will jump and pull. I mean, they're excited to be out there. Jumping is an attention-seeking behavior. The natural inclination is to say down or to push it. And of course, the more you push, the more it's going to come back, because that's a game. I had a trainer who, my previous dog, when he was a puppy, he was a jumper, and she said, "I would just kick him in the chest." We don't kick our dogs here. The internal rewards or reinforces sometimes things that we don't think about that they're reinforced. An example would be delivery man comes to the door, dog barks and goes crazy, the delivery man leaves. It reinforces that barking makes intruders go away. Some people want that; they want an alert dog, but not everyone wants a dog to bark at every sound. So what we do recommend is when the dog jumps, you turn away from it and not give it the attention it seeks, and then out of the corner of your eye, when the dog's feet are off 4 feet on the ground, then you praise it. So you ignore the bad behavior, praise the good. Doesn't always work, but it's what we try. And over time, it does work. The other thing to try is what we call wrist pulse, or pulse wrist. Do you want to be the dog? So hold on. So you're basically just, jerking on the leash. I call it an annoyance factor. You're just, kind of slowing it down, and they get it. And it worked, great with my dog. So, just that jerk. You're not pulling them off their feet, obviously, but just, and you can accompany it with a voice command. We don't try to make everybody do the same thing, but, I always say no pull. You always want to reward what you like. If it's not pulling, give it a treat or praise. If a dog is pulling really hard, first thing to do is just stop. Give it a timeout, wait for it to calm down, the leash is loose, keep walking. If it starts pulling, stop. do this a couple times. More than 10 minutes of training is, about as much as a dog can handle at any given time. But again, if all the volunteers kind of treat it the same way, it will learn that pulling doesn't get it where it wants to go. Dogs are pack animals. They will follow the leader. So when you have a dog at the end of a leash or lead, interchangeable, who's the leader? It's not the dog. It's you at this end of the, you're leading the dog to where you want it to go and what you want it to do. If you're not the leader, the dog, will assume that position, and they can tell if you're a leader through your body language, your confidence, your voice tones. You've all seen or heard of the dog whisperer. Mm-hmm. Well, he tells people, and when you train dogs, you're really training people. So he tells people who are having trouble with walking dogs, walk with confidence, shoulders back, own the walk. So, you have to shoulders back. I had a volunteer I was training to dog walk, and she was walking, kind of like this. And I took the leash to show her a little trick to slow the dog down, but the minute I took the leash, the dog stopped pulling. So I like to think he knew I was in control.
I never go much further than this post up here. I don't like to get anywhere close to 108, no matter what kind of dog I have.
Sometimes dogs become reactive to something, whether it's another dog or the horses out there. If a dog becomes reactive to something, just turn and go in the opposite direction. You just want to divert its attention, so that you're not reinforcing, that reactivity. I was teaching another dog walker, and we were up on the hill near the street, and a siren went by, and the dog, froze and, looked frightened. And the natural inclination, which the volunteer did, was to comfort it. And I said, well, you're really kind of reinforcing that fear. The best thing to do is just turn and walk away in the opposite direction of whatever the dog was reacting to.
They say they get just as refreshed sniffing in a pen as they do walking. But we're required to keep at least a 15 to 20 foot distance between dogs.
Oh.
So if you're walking a dog next week, for example, and I'm walking one and we want to talk, we can, but we have to stay at least 15 feet apart with our dogs. When you meet somebody in the afternoon, there's often a person from the public sector walking around, and they might say, can I pet your dog, for example? We're not allowed to let them interact with any of the dogs for liability reasons. We're always polite but firm. We just have to tell them that we're not at liberty to do that because of liability issues. And then the other side of that is the information side. Sometimes they'll want to know about the dog, like what's his name, why is he here, how old is he, that sort of thing. And if the dog comes from the adoption center, which Twinkles does not, we're allowed to tell them anything we know that's on the cage card because they can go in and read it themselves. No, Stray.
Stray dog?
Stray from Deerfield. She's been here she's been here about 2 months, a little over 2 months. 4 years old. They're trying to get her adopted. We take her out and put her coat on her because it's hanging.
One of the challenges, one of the number one reasons animals are surrendered is because of behavior. And it's the owner's responsibility to ensure that they educate themselves before they get a pet. What kind of pet are they getting? Cat, dog, rabbit, bird? What do they need to know? What do they need to do in order to ensure that this animal will remain safely in their home forever? So whether it's housebreaking or barking or pulling or chewing, it's an owner's responsibility. And so we have a lot of information. We encourage people to contact us. We consider ourselves a community resource center. Contact us if you have issues regarding animals in any way, and we will try and help you. If we don't have the answer, we'll try and direct you to someone who does.
So again, what we typically do when we want to do deals, we start doing this thing with the leash, which is going to cause that reaction, that opposition reflex where they pull against it. So you want to try to keep your shoulders nice and relaxed.
One way is we work with the public and the public's animals, so teaching obedience classes, basic level obedience classes, advanced level obedience classes, specialty classes, so we have a nose work class, we have a canine good citizen class, we have agility classes, we also have a whole program devoted toward what we call our grumpy growlies, which are dogs that are a little bit more opinionated, so dealing a little bit more with aggression. We have a group class program for aggressive dogs, which sounds scary, but is actually not that bad. As long as he doesn't go to walk away.
Oh, good dog. He sat himself back down. That too can reward him.
We also offer private behavioral consultations. So if someone's having specific behavioral issues, like their dog doesn't like visitors coming over or whatever the case may be, we will work with that, where we meet with the person and the dog for an hour, evaluate the dog, put together a training program catered to those specific needs. So the private behavioral consultations are there for trouble behaviors, are also there if people just want to brush up on something.
Real fast reward. Only count to like 1 or 2 seconds.
Stay. Stay. Good boy.
Basic commands. We have private obedience training where we take our group classes and we fit it to a 1 hour week for 4 weeks. That is a one-on-one session. So for those folks who have trouble fitting in or committing to 6-week classes, that's a great one because they can kind of pick and choose where their schedule is.
Leave it.
So just keep in mind that maybe setting some tantalizing.
So those are things that we offer for the public and for support for their dogs. Then the other side of this is the in-house animals. So cats, dogs, rabbits, horses, mainly our focus right now is dogs, but it is soon becoming more involved with the cat portion of things. Our Shelter Stars program, which is obedience classes just for the shelter dogs. So Kelly Marinell, who is also an adoption counselor here, works part-time in the training department. She offers those classes on Sundays, and our Mod Squad volunteers take part. Our Mod Squad volunteers are volunteers that have put in at least 25 hours of dog walking and have also attended specific trainings on how to teach dogs in the shelter different basic obedience commands, help them become more highly adoptable. So things that adopters don't want to have happening to them when they open the cage to take a dog out for a walk, jumping up, pulling, barking.
I might have mentioned Mod Squad in the orientation. These are volunteers who've done at least 25 hours of regular dog walking, and then we have occasional classes where our behavior and training staff teach volunteers a few more tricks, basically, a few more, a little bit more training on working with the dogs that have some issues and behavior issues. And so once they've had that training, any dog that has the Mod Squad sign, they'd be able to walk those dogs.
It's on the kennels, so the Mod Squad means that that dog potentially needs a little bit more work than a new volunteer coming into the program. So the dog might be reactive towards other dogs, so barks, lunges, and growls when they're out and about. They might jump up and be really, really, really mouthy or need some basic training skills. So basically those dogs are handled by either staff or Mod Squad members only. When you're working with behavior modification, it has to be as consistent as you can make it in this environment, which is difficult. So we try to utilize those volunteers who have been trained and skilled in the areas of handling more difficult dogs, and we have them work with the more difficult dogs. So that's where the Mod Squad comes into play.
Yes, boy! I know, it's not really good, don't they, baby?
dogs in different categories. I never like to say fixing a behavior because it really can't, nothing can be fixed permanently. There's always chances for things to, you know, resurface again. But I think there are dogs that are workable and trainable, and I think there are dogs that are management dogs. And what I mean by that is workable, trainable are dogs that have showed a lot of turnaround really, really quickly. They're easily pick up on things. They have behavior issues, but they might not be things that are potentially dangerous. Then there are management dogs. I have 5 management dogs myself. And so management dogs are dogs that usually have had some kind of troubled past or rehearsed really negative behaviors multiple times.
Yeah.
One of my own dogs, for example, had a number of bite incidents in her history before I got her from the rescue. And so she is a dog that at 12 years old is still very much needs to go up to her secret little sanctuary when new people come in the house, and I have a very specific introduction that I do with her. She is who she is. There's a certain part of accepting who your dog is, and I think that's difficult a lot of times, especially if you've lost a pet and then go and adopt another one and they're not the same. It makes us feel like, why can't they just be the same?
Yeah.
We all have our individual personalities, and there are things that we can absolutely train and work on. We can work on fixing behaviors. We can't fix who they are. If you have a shy, fearful, nervous dog, we're not going to be able to wave a wand and make them magically, you know, confident. They're always going to be shy, fearful. But whether they bark at people or remain by your side, that we can work with. So it's the behaviors you're looking to change, not necessarily who they are.
So we always have to have a discussion that we don't join. That's what we're working on.
He's just so...
Do you think people would give up their dog if they can't change it?
Yeah, I think it happens. It definitely happens. We do have folks come in who have to surrender their dog for behavioral reasons.
Yeah.
And sometimes they've worked with the dog and really, really tried, and it might be a management dog, but it's not appropriate for the living situation they're in. And usually we'll set up a behavior consultation. We'll talk about the behaviors. I'll look at the scenario. I'll give them a very honest, objective behavioral opinion of what I think is going on and whether I think it's something that they can work with in their setting. I will absolutely be honest with people if I don't feel like their living situation is a safe situation to have that particular dog in. But a lot of times, the unique part about what I do here and what we do in this department is to help stop that flow from coming in the surrender door. And a lot of people do. Their last option is, I don't know what to do. I'm at wit's end. I'm done with this. I'll come and see you. And they wind up keeping the dog or finding a better situation. If you've never taught your dog that the word wait means to actually hold on, what we're going to wind up doing is going, wait, which is going to teach your dog that the word wait means dance around the block. So it's important, like anything else, to capture it when it's happening the first few times before you ask for it. When you take a step back through the door, lots of dogs will typically go to follow you. If that's the case, it's a step back into the room. You're using your body to claim that space, to say, hey, this is mine. So I'm going to show you. Actually, I can probably show you at the door here. So I'm going to walk up to the door, stand in front of him. See, as soon as I took a step in front of him, he went, whoa. He's like, what are you doing? Wait. That's very funny. Okay. Good boy! Good job, Ross. I think most of behavioral problems stem from a lack of understanding. lack of at least meeting somewhere halfway in between.
It's a big one. Like this little gadget car. Yes, good boy!
We're different species and we live in the same world, and it's really hard, and I think that throws a wrench into things a lot. One of the unique things about how we do our classes here is in our 6-week course, the first week that we have is a humans only orientation.
Don't look at me like that. She's like, why did you put me out in the middle of the room? Good girl.
So the owners come and the family members, whoever wants to come, attend without the dog. We go over the basics for an hour of dog behavior. So why we do positive reinforcement, why we've chosen it, how we go about it, why dogs do what they do.
Good boy. That was cute.
I remember coming into the shelter one day and looking at the bottom of one of our kennels, and there was a little puppy there, and I'm thinking, why is the puppy here? And I looked up on the cage card for the reason for surrender, needs training. Of course the pet needs training. It's a baby. But people didn't think about that when they purchased it, when they free to a good home, whatever the reason was that they got that animal, they didn't think it through. This animal's going to be in my life for the next 10 to 20 years. What do I need to do to be able to care for it? It's my responsibility to feed it, to ensure it has medical care, to make sure that it's safe, to make sure that it's socialized and trained. It takes time. So if you don't have time and you don't have the resources to care for an animal, don't get one. Visit somebody, find other ways to volunteer, find other ways to engage, and have that relationship without taking on the responsibility.
Much as you possibly can. If you're gonna make an all, if you're gonna make a total information thing about the, our shelter, our agency, what we do here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, get as much as you possibly can as far as the animals and the animal areas. Yeah. chickens. Say hi, Wendy.
We've had cats here that have been here just about a year. And then it just takes that special person coming through the door
Yes, it does.
and home they go. It's awesome.
And look at these two.
These two girls.
2 kitties that are on a special diet. And I'm not sure arthritic ladies. They're on canned food and tuna mixed with water. That's to help their arthritis and their arthritic problem. Felicia, a 5-year-old girl, and it's been here not too long, just about a month now. And the average stay for kitties is around 5 to 6 weeks.
They're actually it's a class.
Yeah.
So some of the dogs that have been here a while.
The little dogs go home first. They're the most popular. That kitty's been here for a while. That's Sheldon. Sheldon's a 10-year-old Siamese cross. I think he was 9 when he got here. A 10-year-old Siamese cross, and it's been here since June 23rd. So this kitty's getting to owe us rent for the space it's taking. But Sheldon had, I think when he first came in, he was not the friendliest guy, but I think, as we've had experience, that a lot of kitties, once they've been here a little while, if they've been rambunctious at first, they calm down and realize, this life isn't so bad. And kitties are they're pretty smart to
We're very blessed. We're what we call an open admission, unlimited stay facility, which means that, sadly, some cats will spend their 1-year anniversary with us. But the good news is that we're able to, because of the support of our community, be here for those cats until they find their forever homes.
They're in this room, it's easier to feed them the diet that they need to prevent the problem from reoccurring. It's easier to keep them segregated from the other animals for fear that they would eat the wrong food. So these guys they really don't like that a heck of a lot.
He was a stray.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You can tell almost by the way they react to us.
Yeah.
That they've had a bad experience with a person, say with glasses on or a hat, or a man. Just the sound of a man's voice that their experience has shown us They'll show us just by the reaction to us what it's been like. So they have their own little characteristics about them.
Not good with kids?
Kitties like this one's a Bengal-like looking kitty. And a pretty face, round face, beautiful bright green eyes, looks like a playful little thing. Cat probably less than 5 years old. But definitely black cats are the ones that get out of here last.
Some want a fluffy, cute little kitten, but then we have folks that come in that want a specific one that looked like one they had before, or was the best cat ever, so that's what they're looking at, or they want a cat that has a lot of issues, that's been here the longest, that's the oldest. Issues are not a problem. Folks will come in and they can't do the special diet because it's too costly, so we seem to have a variety of animals with a variety of situations for everybody.
Yeah, no, I don't think you should. I think that was a suggestion. But once you let her out of that room, keep the litter box in that room so that, she feels comfortable going back and forth to it. Okay. Okay. Are you able to shut her in there with it? Okay.
I think we were close to 30 last week and 50 plus the week before that. And if I'm not mistaken, last year there were around 1,400 cats that went home and a little over 1,300 dogs that went home. So that keeps us really busy and rocking and rolling most of the time. As far as the numbers that are published, there's something like 4,000 animals a year. I'd say maybe 60% of them are cats, and 35% are dogs, and the rest would be other type animals, small animals and horses and goats.
They're smarter than dogs. I don't know what his story is, where he lived, where he came from.
How long's he been here?
Not too long. You like that? Dogs like that. I think you do. Oh, good boy. Oh.
It reaches a point where you're saturated. You have a limited amount of funds and people and space and that type of thing. So.
Last year we had a 97% live release rate, meaning adopted, rehomed. Sometimes we transfer them to other shelters to give them a better chance at if a dog or a cat has been here for a while, give them a better chance of being adopted, a different audience.
From what I understand in the old days, that if a kitty was surrendered here and needed extensive dental work, it was curtains for that animal. It was just not something that there was enough, it was something that was not enough money available. Nowadays, They get all of that taken care of, and hopefully it's enough to get them adopted and out into their forever home. Amen.
Let's get the cat knocked out. She says, look, I've been in this cage for 2 days. I want to get this over with so I can get out of this cage.
So, just give me a second, because when I like to work around.
Sweet girl. Sorry. So we're going to bring a cat in right now. No, we're not. I lied to you. We're going to anesthetize a cat. You might not want to video that. Let's give him one more shot. I'll just go on with this one. Why are you frowning?
Spaying and neutering continues to be a really critical issue in the country, and we have a responsibility as a humane society to ensure that we don't have any unnecessary, unwanted breeding. And so every single cat and dog and rabbit that's placed from our facility is spayed and neutered prior to adoption. It's one of the benefits of adopting from a humane society. If somebody has an animal and they are not able to afford to have it spayed and neutered by their local vet, they can certainly contact us. There are resources both online and through calling for low-cost spay-neuter alternatives throughout the state. So there's really, if somebody's interested and able to have their animal spayed and neutered, in other words, it's not a medical issue that's prohibiting it, contact us and we'll absolutely help try and get that animal neutered. So if you're going to breed an animal, you need to be a responsible breeder and ensure that you have homes for each of the animals and that those homes aren't going to continue to breed, because if you start with 2 intact animals, you can literally have hundreds of thousands of unwanted animals by the undesired breeding of many of those animals in the future. Animal overpopulation is a very serious issue in the state of New Hampshire. It continues to be. 20 years ago, we were euthanizing dogs and puppies routinely for space. Today, we've been able to solve a lot of those problems because of spaying and neutering. It is so important that everybody spay and neuter their animals unless they are a responsible breeder who is going to continue to do that. And that's fine, but otherwise, spay and neuter your pet. Today, we still have a very difficult problem in New Hampshire regarding cats. Every spring and summer, fall, we see hundreds of kittens coming into shelters, unwanted litters because people have not spayed and neutered their cats. So we ask people to be responsible, do not add to the overpopulation problem, do not allow animals to be unnecessarily euthanized in shelters across the United States because of that.
Like, I kind of want to go check that out, but I don't know.
We are built on 4 cornerstones, we call them. We've talked about some of them. Obviously, the adoption and sheltering services, our humane education programs for children and youth, the behavior and training department, and the 4th cornerstone is our field services department. We have one of only 2 full-time cruelty investigators in the state. So, as you would think, he investigates reports of animal cruelty, neglect, abuse. But also he heads any rescue operations that we may be involved in. And that could be something as simple as we just drove down to New York and picked up animals. We actually didn't take animals that were abandoned because of Sandy. We took animals out of shelters that had been there for a while so that they could have room for the animals that were lost by Sandy, so that would give people more time to retrieve them. And we do that, as I said, for a lot of our dogs, where we actually go get some in various states, as well as some of them are transported from other shelters across the country.
We cover the whole state of New Hampshire. I've been to Massachusetts to help Massachusetts people out before. I've been as far as Mississippi to help out with animals after the Katrina hurricanes. A couple of weeks ago I was in New York.
Just this year, we had over 800 cruelty complaints. That doesn't mean that there were actually 800 convictions, but there were that many incidents where people were concerned about the welfare of animals in our community. 2013.
Animal hoarding, how common is that around here?
It's getting more common.
More common?
Yeah, because more people are starting to report it than they used to, because they're seeing it on TV now, and they're realizing that the woman down the street with 60 or 70 cats is, hoarding animals and stuff like that. So they're starting to call it in a little more.
It's definitely not healthy.
Definitely not healthy. The ammonia smells in the house. If you get that many cats in a house, you simply can't keep up with the litter boxes, and they overflow, and then the cats start messing all over the house. The ammonia smell in itself can cause brain damage to both the animals and the human beings. So if you know somebody that's living in a situation where there's a lot of ammonia in the house, then they should report it, because something needs to be done about that.
Is she going tomorrow?
No, wait for tomorrow. And Linda found she was really painful, so I gave her buprenorphine oral.
Normally, it's hard to do a hoarding case, because a lot of the times the hoarders won't let you in the house. If you've ever seen the shows on TV, they'll come to the door, and you got to use your senses. You got to be able to, when you walk up the door, if the woman opens the door or the man opens the door, and you go, ooh, and you get knocked over by ammonia, then you know there's something wrong in there, but they won't let you in. So then you got to take the time and go and get a search warrant, explain in the warrant to the judge that you need to gain entry into the house and check on the safety of the animals and the safety of the people that are in the house. Take an ammonia tester with you and check the ammonia levels. And if it's real high, then usually the town health officer will come in and condemn the house, and then everybody has to leave, including the animals. That's usually the only way you can get into those situations. Other than that, mostly hoarders won't even let friends into the house, because they know it's a bad situation. They don't want to get caught, and they don't want to get reported. So there's a lot of hoarding going on out there, but it's like stumbled across accidentally. They get so many that they can't feed them all properly, or the animals, cats or dogs, will start fighting over the food, and some of the animals that are weaker will be pushed away from the food, and the stronger animals will get to eat the food. So then you start noticing a lot of cats or dogs are starting to get real skinny, and they're showing a skeletal, and people are going like, well, I don't know why, because I feed them every morning. Well, when you get that many animals, you need to separate them and feed them so that you need to make sure everyone's getting food and water. People hoard because all the studying that they've been doing on it at this point in time, they've determined that it's a mental illness type thing. It's not a mental illness that would drive you to go to the state hospital, that you're mentally insane or something like that. It's just a part of the mentality that you're trying to help animals, and it starts out that way. You want to help animals, and then all of a sudden you've got way too many, and you're still trying to help animals, but you're not getting rid of the animals that you already got, and it turns into a hoarding situation. That's the way that they do it, and a lot of times you'll see on TV, whenever you go to a hoarding situation, you try to take somebody, a therapist or something along with you to try to talk to these people, because 90% of the time when you're going there under a search warrant with the police and everybody else, so it's really straining on the people there, and they don't want you there to begin with, and they don't want you taking their animals. So a lot of times you try to take somebody that in a medical profession that can deal with the person and explain to them and try to convince them that we're doing the best that we can by removing the animals and saving her and making them clean up the house and stuff like that. So there's a lot to it, and it's very hard to get a hoarding case. And 90% of the time you're really not in there to look to bring the hoarder to court and charge him with cruelty. It doesn't matter. The law says that under shelters, the doghouse needs to be so that the dog is able to walk in, turn around, lay down, and proportionate to the dog's size so that he can retain his body heat. So in other words, you wouldn't put a big giant doghouse out there if you were keeping a little small lap dog outside. A lot of people I've seen don't have a doghouse. They leave the garage door open about a foot so that the dog can scoot in under there. But technically that's illegal because the dog can't retain his body heat in a garage.
Oh, it's too big. Yeah.
It's too big. So if they put a shelter inside the garage so the dog can scoot in and then go into the shelter, then they're all set. A lot of people have a doghouse, and I'll get calls from people saying, this poor dog's out in the snowstorm, out in the sleet and rain. And you get over there and there's a doghouse. I can't do anything, ma'am. He's supplying the doghouse for the dog. That's what he has to do. If the dog chooses not to go in the doghouse, that's up to the dog. At some point when he gets so cold, he starts shivering, he will go in and warm himself up. You know, they're with an alarm, and people will still call and say, he's got a house out there, but the dog won't go in it. Well, there's nothing we can do. In the summertime now, a dog is required to have shelter as well. And the dog needs to have that shelter out of direct sunlight. So if you got a doghouse out there and it's sitting in direct sunlight all day, it's still in violation of the shelter law. It needs to be moved somewhere with its shade so the dog has its shade. And he's out of the direct sunlight. One of the biggest complaints we get in the summertime is people leaving dogs in hot cars. And the question becomes, well, what do you consider a hot car? Because there's no temperatures under the state statute. Temperatures rise very rapidly when the heat's beating down on a car, especially a dark colored car. It may be 80 degrees outside, but the temperature's going to zoom up past 100 degrees, 120 degrees with a car sitting out there and the windows roll down about 2 inches. That car's going to shoot up over 100 and 120 degrees within like 10 to 15 minutes. And if you got a dog in there, he's going to start showing signs of hypothermia. Not hypothermia, but hypo. You know, they'll just start getting real lethargic and start not moving around, and then they're panting and trying. They'll even scratch at the windows trying to get out. They'll even try to get down on the floor out where it's a little cooler to try to save themselves. But most of the times, when something like that happens and the cops get there, they have the authority, and I have the authority under state law that if necessary we can break a window and remove the dog. When a dog is in that bad a shape, we have broken the windows before, and you take the dog out and you try to get him in cold water and rush him to a veterinarian, and then the person can be charged with leaving a dog in a hot car. There's no acceptable lengths put in the law. What it is you see the animal in distress, then you can act on it. So like in the summertime, we had a case over in Heppen where the officers went and looked at this dog that was in a hot car, and they were like, well, it doesn't look to me, even though the dog was walking around and panting, it didn't look like it was under stress. Well, panting is one of the first signs that a dog will do to show this dog is under stress. The cops saw him panting, and they said, well, we'll come back in half an hour and check on the dog. They went back in half an hour, the car was still there, and the dog was dead. It was a big mistake. So now they've been trained and they know what to look for, and so they'll go and they see a dog in a hot car and they'll take action right away. They'll try to go into the stores and have the owner's page, because they'll run the plate number and try to have the owner's page, and then they'll bring him out. They can issue him a citation. They could even seize the dog if they want to. There's been a lot of cases. Portsmouth has had several cases. Animals left in a car and the dog died, and the people were like, "Oh, it's only in the store for 15 minutes." Well, that's all it takes. Because I mean, when it's 70, 80, 90 degrees out, it's going to get up over 100 degrees in that car in no time at all. Those are the two of my biggest complaints in the middle of winter time, is the no shelter for the dog and no shelter for the horses. Most of my complaints and stuff that I'm receiving are from dogs to horses that they don't have proper shelter. I get a lot of calls in the winter because horses are standing out in a snowstorm. A lot of times I'll arrive at the residence and I'll see that they have a shelter. The horse just chooses not to go into it. You can't tie him in it by law. You can't tie the horse in the shelter. So from November 1st to April 15th, you're required to have at least a 3-sided shelter with a roof. So people will put those out in the fields for the horses. Well, if the horses decide they don't want to use it, you can't make them, but by law, the people have to supply them. So I get a lot of calls like that. There's a horse standing out here and the guy won't put it in the shelter. And we say, well, unless it's a barn, if it's a 3-sided shelter, they can't tie it in the shelter. So, a lot of times we can alleviate the call like that, or people will just call and leave a voice message, "I want to remain anonymous, but there's a horse without shelter," and you go up there and do your investigation. You find out there actually is a shelter. Otherwise, during the course of the summer, we'll still get calls from people that horses are out with no shelter, and you have to explain to them there's no requirement for a horse. The horse can be out in the rain, the horse can be out in a thunder and lightning storm. The only requirement is from November to April that they have shelter. A lot of people don't realize that, so once you tell them, then they say, "Oh, well, that's sad, they ought to change the laws." And yeah, maybe they should, but until they do, you can't do anything to enforce that the dog have shelter or the horse have shelter.
So we care for animals in our Safe Net program that are often victims of domestic violence. What you find is that a person can't leave the home and leave the animal because sometimes that animal is what's being used as a threat. "I will kill that dog if you fill in the blank." So we'll take that animal in so that somebody can safely leave the home.
You better walk your little butt right outside.
Oh. Excuse me. Come on, Lucy. In. Lucy, come. Good boy. Good girl. Good girl.
Can you sit? Good girl, Luce. Good girl.
Oh, that was so nice of you.
Is it okay if I take the food out?
Yeah, you need a container? Sure. Let me get your receipt. Thank you. Thank you.
I put his address in there.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on your side with that. They're microchip, they're collar.
Oh, he's camera shy.
Look at me. Hey. One more. Hey.
So how long have you been doing this? 3 years? or
No, 8.5.
8 years.
I started in '04, August of '04, so this summer will be 9 years. Hey, Bean, come here. Hey.
So what made you start volunteering?
Oh, that's a very appropriate question. I had retired from Sanders Associates in Nashua. I worked there for 15 years after I got out of the Air Force.
Yeah.
And I worked there from '84 to '99. And I was sitting at home one day. My wife was reading want ads in the newspaper. And I said, "What are you reading want ads for? You want me to get another job?" And she said, "No, I'm just letting you know what's out there." And she came across one that said dog walkers wanted at the SPCA and a couple of other things. So I said, "Gee, that sounds interesting." So I think that very week I took the orientation course from Christine Schumacher, who was the volunteer coordinator at the time. And the next day I had my training. And the next day after that, I started just because I love dogs and I thought that it would be a fun thing to do in retirement life. So, in fact, I chaired a committee for almost a year to examine recruitment and retention. And the overwhelming reason that people gave for volunteering was their almost passionate love of dogs. And that was the #1 reason. And I guess you'd have to say that's my reason too.
Disclaimer that I'm not a trained dog trainer. Everything I know I learned through listening to the staff here, experience. I was a volunteer, worked in the dog kennels, helped introduce our dogs to other people's dogs. And the more you hear, the more you learn.
Okay, so the most popular job here is walking the dogs?
Walking the dogs. And it too is, we need dog walkers. I certainly do need dog walkers. They're important, and all the dogs need their exercise and need to be taken out and just get away from those damn cages.
What do you generally need the most of?
Well, we have a hard time keeping cat care. And it could be that we need them mostly in the mornings, and not everyone can come in the mornings. If you're working especially. But it's hard work, it's upper body. You're cleaning cat cages, lifting litter pans, etc. People seem to love to be out in any kind of weather. I mean, the only weather we don't walk dogs in is thunder and lightning, but we have dog walkers in snow, rain, blazing sun, freezing cold. But and a lot of people say, "Oh, I'll do anything," and so I'll push you towards cats if that's if you're not allergic. We have a few people who come in and said, "I can't work with the cats because I'm allergic." So that's what I say to that question.
Cruelty investigations is another. Humane education, trying to change the future, teaching the children today about responsible pet ownership, compassion. and then training and behavior, trying to keep the animal as a responsible citizen in the home, a responsible pet in our community, well-mannered, etc. So those are the 4 main cornerstones of our work.